All right, everyone, officially welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dylan High. I'm with the Washington State Historical Society, and we're going to talk about our America's 250th Events Grant today. So this grant came about. Let me back up and say the Washington State Historical Society is the agency that is responsible for implementation of Washington State's America's 250th, based off of the commission that was established back in 2022. And we are super excited to have partnered with the Washington Department of Commerce and being able to distribute some of these grant funds in order to support some of these America 250 related events and programming that are happening throughout the state. Over here on our team, I know this looks like a lot of people, and we've been growing slightly based off of some of our America 250 efforts. But I am joined today by my colleagues Jay Bareston and Allison Campbell, who work with me on our Heritage Outreach team, as well as Lorraine Ralston, who is our America 250 coordinator. And many of you probably know her much better than me. She's been a really power horse going all throughout the state, really drumming up interest and excitement all around this year. Kelsey Horn has been a recent addition who's been helping us with some of our digital communications. So if you're following us on the America 250 Washington on social media, you've been seeing her work. Alethea Whitman, who is our ideas officer, who manages our diversity and local history grant, and Jessica Shaw, our institutional giving manager. So I'm just putting that out there in case you've interacted with any of us. We are all happy to kind of share a little bit more about this grant, about these opportunities coming up, and then more than likely you'll be at some point directed to me. I'll be kind of answering the questions specifically around this grant. How do you find the grant information? If you go to washingtonhistory.org/250grants, that is the main landing page for this events grant. I know we have a little bit of information on our America 250 WA page. It will redirect you to this website. So just in case you see that, that is where all of this information will be living. If you go to that washingtonhistory.org website, if you go to the top tab across Washington and go to grants, that's where you can also find this information. It'll get you to the same web page. So that's where to look for all of this information. Um, so a brief overview, kind of the high level about the grant. This events grant is for awards of up to $1,000, and there is no match required. And it is those grants will be to support public events or programs related to the commemoration of America's 250th here in Washington State. So that can go towards the planning or implementation of those events. Um, uh, the organizations that can apply, any 501c3 nonprofit organization can apply, as well as a fiscally sponsored organization, tribal entities, or local governmental agencies. So all of those are able to apply for and receive grant funds for this. Our application is currently open. It will be due by May 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So again, I know this is a quick turnaround, but again, as you'll see when we go through the application process, it should be a pretty quick application process. Jay, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to mention we put 501(c)(3) on here, but there are other 501(c) organizations that are eligible. Basically, if you're eligible to be a partner, a 250 partner, you're eligible for this grant. Yes, 501(c)(6) that is all good. 501(c)(3) is what most of our programming is geared toward. This is a little different because we're partnering with Commerce and we're kind of opening it up to more organizations. So just wanted to note that other 501(c) organizations are eligible.
Thank you, Jay. We'll mention it a couple times here throughout this process. But always our kind of tagline is if you have a question or if you're not quite sure if an event is eligible, please reach out. We would much rather talk to you and see if we can figure out, if there's an opportunity for an event that you're trying to find support for. If there's a way that we can find a way that this grant could support it, we would love to talk with you and figure that out, right? So we're trying to create some guidelines and some structure to um, um, clarify questions, but always if there's a case or an issue that you're trying to figure out, please reach out. Um, So additionally, again, part of this effort is to really boost the statewide efforts around America's 250th. So um, we we would like all applicants to be registered as an America 250 Washington partner. If you go to this website, america250wa.org/partners, there is a registration link right at the top of the page. It's super easy to apply. It's just going to ask some very basic organizational information. It's free. There is no specific commitment involved in registering, but it's a way that you can list your organization on our partners website. We currently have, Lorraine, you can correct me on this. I know at least over 800, I believe over 900. I think we're getting close to 1,000 partners now listed on our website. It continue.
Yep, we're just at about 870, but
Okay,
I'm
okay.
hopeful, Dylan.
We're gonna hit that 1,000 mark. But again, it's super easy to get registered. Shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes to put your information in that form. We also would love, we do have for those organizations that are registered as partners. One of the benefits is that you can list your America 250 related events on our events calendar. We do also ask that if you are pursuing this grant, that you would list that your event that you're pursuing this funding for on our events calendar. Again, it's a great way for us to be able to boost those events, and it's a great way for our communities all across Washington State to see the range of events that are happening, all related to America's 250th. So. Um, um, Let me pause here really quick and just say, if at any point you have questions, I forgot to mention this at the top, please feel free to raise your hand. You can also drop them in the chat. We'll try and monitor that chat. I'll pause a couple times here to just make sure I can catch up on any questions. We'll also have plenty of time for questions at the end. So, but I am happy if you think of a question and you want me to pause, please feel free to just throw up your hand. All right. So what kinds of programs are eligible? Well, your program must be open to the public, right? So if it is a program that is restricted just to members of your organization, or somehow kind of restricted only to a small subset, then that would not be eligible for funding. That doesn't mean that if it's a ticketed event, it doesn't have to be an unlimited open, but just that there's an opportunity for the general public to participate in your event in some way. Lori, yes, you have a question.
Yes, our event is an oral history project that we're going to be videotaping and then making it available to the public. So does that disqualify our event?
No, I think that should be fine because the end users are the people that would be able to view and participate in that event, if I'm understanding correctly. We might have to talk a little bit more about kind of what the event portion or program portion of that is, but at least from what you just mentioned, right? If the idea is that you're going to be doing these oral histories and then those are going to be part of a program that are going to be open to the general public, that should be eligible. So, yeah, but great question. But yeah, I'm happy to talk more offline, and we can talk a little bit more about that kind of programming. Um, so again, part of this grant is, or the purpose of this grant is for the commemoration of America's 250th. So your event should be related to America's 250th in some way. We'll talk a little bit more about some ways that you can kind of demonstrate that. But again, that you are in some way billing this as something as part of this America's 250th year, semi-quincentennial year. The event occurs in Washington, or if you're hosting an online event, that it's being hosted by a Washington-based organization. And then we say that the event would be held on or prior to October 31st, 2026. Now, I put an asterisk here. We chose that late October date because most of our America 250 Washington initiatives are occurring throughout this summer from June through September. And we wanted to give a little leeway after that September date. If your event is going to be held after October 31st, please email me. We are happy to talk about, that should still be eligible, but we just want to know in advance. We are trying to host this grant application. Then we have another round of grant applications coming up later this summer, and so we want to be able to close out as many of our events grants here throughout the summer season towards the end of the year, so we can continue to support those events that are happening kind of later in the year. So again, so if your event happens, later than October 31st, just please reach out, and we're happy to discuss. It doesn't mean that you can't apply, but we're assuming that most events are going to be happening during that summer season, and so we're going to ask to wrap up most of our grant reimbursements and final reporting by the end of the year. All right, and what kinds of things could this grant fund? So this will fund direct program expenses, such as, again, these are just some examples of types of event funding. It could go towards venue or site rental costs, equipment rentals or purchasing. It could go towards supplies, staffing that's directly related to your event. It could go towards, consulting or contracting fees if you are working with, planners, or you're going to be bringing on guest speakers. All of those kinds of things would be eligible. Marketing, outreach, as well as some, if you have additional licensing, permitting, or insurance fees, all of those things could be part of your program expenses that we could fund through grant funds. What we cannot, so again, as we mentioned before, we cannot fund private events, and we cannot fund major capital expenses as part of this grant. So again, just a note that all of our grants are done on a reimbursement basis, and so that means that any grant funds that you are applying for, you would have to be able to purchase, put up those costs up front, and then we would reimburse those expenses with your final reporting, again, at the end of your event or by that October 31st date. Katrinka, I see you have a question.
Just wondering if exhibits count as an event, or if it actually has to be in an event.
Good question. I would.
I think so. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Because it would be open to the public. It'd be part of our America 250 related programming. So I think that should count. Yeah.
And so specifically, if it was one of many, would that count?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And actually, and we'll talk about this in a moment, events and programs that are related to the Washington specific initiatives, that actually is some of the types of programming that would help increase your relevancy and fit within the priorities this granting. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to pause here. Any questions so far about eligible expenses, events, or kind of just the overall purpose of this grant? I'm going to take a pause here and just take a look. And I know Jay's been kind of monitoring the chat. Jay, is there anything in particular that we didn't get, questions that we didn't get to in the chat, or?
Yeah, I'll note that Suzette asked if she said, since we have to purchase first, well, we know the expenses could be covered if we get the grant. So yes, the sort of sequence is you submit the application. We're going to try to send notifications out in early June. We're trying to move real fast on this, or kind of mid-June. And then basically once you're notified that you have received a grant, then the funds are guaranteed. You go spend the money, you submit receipts and other documentation to us, and we will then reimburse you for those expenses. That's kind of the steps that we go through for that.
Yeah, Katrinka.
Sorry, one other question. We're doing a collaboration with at least two other partners that are, on your list. If we all applied, as long as we spent the money on different things, could we all apply towards the same project?
Same project. Hmm.
So we're collaborating with the city, the library, and Kent Downtown Partnership, and so all of us are actually different. All of us are listed on your list of partners, but we're going to be doing a joint project, but we'll all be contributing funding to it. So could we all apply for the grant and use the funding for different portions of the collaborative project?
That might depend. So we might have to talk a little bit more offline to kind of figure out, right? If it was all like one discrete project, I would say that might not be eligible. But if it is something where, there's multiple events or part of a series, right? So that's where it might get into some gray area. So we might have to kind of talk a little bit more offline and figure out like where those lines are being drawn in the application and what each organization is taking on. So, like, really
Okay,
good
thanks
question.
again.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I'm going to keep rolling, but if you have other questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat, and then I'll just make sure at the end that we have a chance to go back over if there's any questions that I missed. All right. Let's see if I can move this over. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about some of our program priorities, and I'm going to make a note here about our program priorities, and then when we get to scoring as well. You'll see in the program priorities and the scoring, there's a lot in here. And so I really want to kind of emphasize that the approach that we're trying to take with this is we want every organization, entity, community to kind of put their best foot forward and find a way that they could really boost the relevancy of their program as it relates to this grant. So, we are not asking that you have to hit all these program priorities. In fact, I think it would be pretty rare for someone to be able to hit every single one of these priorities. We just want to be able to provide multiple avenues so that you can really emphasize the relevance and what is kind of the unique contribution that your event and your program is making as part of America's 250th. So the first one is just that we would like to prioritize events where there's either a partnership or the event is being organized with local history or historical organizations. Again, as part of our efforts around America's 250th, really promoting history and how this moment, the significance of this as a historical moment. We are also looking for organizations that are participating in Washington State's America 250th initiatives. And so I'll show you what those are right here. So we have a number of initiatives that are organized, that are being organized all throughout the state. Over here on the left, you can see some of the programs that we're hosting that such as our Out of Many One project, which is for museums to partner with their local communities to select an item that represents the American experience for their community, really focusing on those organizations with collecting organizations, museums, historical organizations, historic sites. Our Moments That Made Us panel exhibit, that's a free downloadable panel exhibit that organizations around the state can download and display in whatever display spaces they have available. We have Washington State Museum Day that's going to be hosted on August 8th, 2026, encouraging free, reduced, or pay what you can admission to museums all across the state. And then we have some of our larger community initiatives, such as our Day of Service. That is, again, we are putting that as June 14th, 2026, although that's really any day that your community or organization wants to encourage volunteering and civic service. Independence Day, July 4th, obviously we know there's going to be a lot of community efforts around that day this summer. And then the Day of Civic Engagement, I'm really encouraging that civic participation. And that one is scheduled for September 17th. But again, that can happen whenever it makes sense for within your community. And so there's two ways that you can kind of tie into these efforts. One is if the event that you're requesting funding for ties into one or more of these initiatives, or if your organization is participating in these. So maybe the event that you're hosting isn't specifically tied to one of these, but you are participating in multiple of these initiatives. We will ask a question in our application about that as well. So those are two ways that you can really show that you're tying into these statewide initiatives. One of our other program priorities is around serving small and rural and underserved communities. And so we are really looking at the way that the legislature defines rural counties as one of our ways of defining this small and rural communities. The other way we're looking at it is at the city or town population level, especially in those urban counties that might have smaller populations. Because we really are emphasizing the grassroots efforts that America's 250th is taking all around the state. We really want to encourage those events that are getting out and serving those communities that might not otherwise have as much opportunities to engage in the moment. So you can see here the ways that we've defined kind of these quote unquote tiers of for rural and small communities. I'm going to change to the next slide here. All of this is listed in our program guidelines if you want to go back for a reference point on any of these things. But I just wanted to kind of show you where we're getting the county-wide designations. All of this is coming from how this is defined in the legislature. This comes from the Office of OFM, Office of Finance Management, where they list out which counties are designated as a rural frontier 1 county, which counties are designated as a rural frontier 2 county, and then which are designated as a rural county. So, so if you need a reference point for that, again, all this is listed in the guidelines, and I will email out this this presentation to everyone after this recording, so you can go back and reference this as well. And then here you'll see just again a visual representation of those various counties and where those designations land. All right. So again, just to go over the final priorities. So again, we're looking at small, rural, and underserved communities. The underserved communities is if you are in a community, maybe it's a large urban community, you're in a large urban, a highly populated area, but your audience is a primarily underserved community. And the way that we really think about that, especially in the history sector, is really referring to those populations whose representation in historical narratives has been limited due to race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, economics, disability, or other socially or institutionally imposed barriers, right? So again, there will be an opportunity to highlight that in one of our short narrative questions. Again, we wanted to just be able to have every organization in every event be able to put forward how they are really benefiting their community and providing an opportunity for everyone to engage in this moment. And then finally, really looking at how these events either are highlighting various diverse perspectives or multiple perspectives of Washington's past, or leveraging the event for long-term impact, right? We recognize that this is there's a lot of efforts going into this America's 250th this year. But if this is something that's part of an ongoing effort, whether that's the start of a collaboration that you're trying to work towards with your partnerships, part of an event series that you're hoping to continue into the future. We want to see that. We want to know that that's part of your planning or your process going into this, because we do really want to be able to maximize the impact and the longevity of this moment. All right. Before we jump into the applications, any questions about the program priorities?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
no,
have another
please. Yeah.
one. When you say diverse, do you mean diverse in terms of ethnicities, or do you mean diverse? Like, we have an extremely unusual subject matter. Would that
Mhm.
count as diverse, or are we really talking about people?
Yeah. Diverse perspectives. So it does not have to necessarily be it does not have to be race, ethnicity. It's really just about, there are many experiences of Washington's past, and how are we kind of using this moment to expand that perspective, expand that understanding of our past, right? So it's really just being able to highlight multiple perspectives.
Okay, thank you, Dylan.
Mhm. And some of the ways, again, we'll talk about this a little bit. Um, sorry, I see the question here. Do we not bother applying if we're not in a small, rural, or underserved community? No, not at all, right? So again, as I emphasized here in the beginning, all of these different priorities are just ways that you can look at ways that you can highlight the significance of your programming, right? If you're not in a small rural community, it doesn't mean that there's no chance to boost your score. And we'll show you in a minute kind of how we're looking at the scoring. But really, there are opportunities for every event to kind of highlight and put their best foot forward, right? And that's kind of the way that we wanted to approach these priorities in the scoring. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Dylan, I'll also highlight Sue's question from earlier where she asked if printing a brochure could qualify. And I would say just attach it to an event, attach it to Museum Day. You're printing a new brochure for Museum Day, and then now you've got an event. So connect it to something that we're doing for the 250th. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Just
All
to
right.
add, just to make that a little more clear, it doesn't mean that your brochure has to be about Museum Day. It's just something you're planning to distribute about whatever content that you want on Museum Day, right? Yes.
Very important clarification. Thank you, Allison. Yes, a brochure featuring your organization, your programs, your work that you are presenting in honor of Museum Day and will have available on Museum Day at your organization, et cetera.
Great questions and great clarifications. Yeah. All right. We'll take a quick look at the application. Oops. Let me close out of here. All right. And then again, I want to leave plenty of time for questions at the end. So when you go to our website, you'll see the Grants for America's 250th. In this first section, this is where we're going to be talking about this grant application. You can read the guidelines here. Just a note, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but as I mentioned earlier, as I alluded to earlier, we are going to be launching another grant program for America's 250th, our History Assist grant. That's going to be coming up in late summer. So keep your eye out for that, but there will be more information here coming in kind of early summer. And then I just wanted to show that we do have some resources down at the bottom of this page for getting started with the grant application. This is where you can start your application. If you haven't uh, registered your organization already in our Heritage portal, that will be the first step. So there's a link here to create the account, and if you would like, there's also a brief video that you can watch just to kind of walk through that registration process and what kind of information you'll need to get registered in our portal. We also have an application template. So if you want to kind of work offline, work collaboratively with others on your grant application, there is a Word document here that you can download and use as you're kind of planning out your responses for your grant application. And then there's a little bit more information if you are a fiscally sponsored organization about getting started with that as well. Yeah, Catherine.
My question was, are we already in the Heritage portal if we're America 250 partner? Is that the same
Oh,
thing or different?
that's different. So our America 250 partner that is just for kind of our America 250 website and listing
Okay.
there. If you have applied for any of our grants in the past or our affiliate program, that's more likely where you might have registered your organization in the portal. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. So once you click this apply here, you'll go to the login screen. And then once you log in, you'll see this page. And so once you've registered and logged in, you'll see this page. And this is where you're going to start your application. You'll see right here up at the top, the grants section. And if you click start application, will pull up a new grant application. And this is what our grant system looks like. So one thing that's uh, 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 a fun quirk of our system is uh, there are some questions where you do have to save your responses in order to continue to input fields. So as with many systems, it's best to save often or save early and save often. So continue to click save your work as you continue to work through this, work through your responses. Up here, you'll include your organization information, including the name of the organization, who the primary contact is, and then if you have additional authorized signatories that are required in your organization. I will say for reimbursing for our grants, we do require at least 2 people be listed here. If you have, if you are a staff or volunteer and you have someone on your board or another, your treasurer, your president, someone else that can act as the authorized signatory, you should list them here. You can include your organization's mission statement here, and then your UEI number, which is if you do not have a UEI number, you can apply through sam.gov. I will say I would encourage as you're going through this application process to do that early. You do not have to have this at the time of submitting the application, but you will need that by the time we get to contracting with your organization. And so I think the latest we've heard is it can take 2 to 3 weeks. And so we do encourage you, if you don't have a UEI number, to do that as soon as possible. And then if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, you can click yes here. It will ask a number of follow-up questions. I'll point out what some of those would be here in a moment. This is where you're going to give us a summary of the event that you're proposing in the grant. You'll give a program title, a very brief description that's 1 to 2 sentences max. Just what is your event that you're what's the event that you're applying for grant funding for? What's the primary county where the event's taking place? And then what is the city or town or the census designated place where the event will be taking place? And then what's the population size of that community? Aaron, I see you have a question.
Yes. Could you explain what a fiscally sponsored organization is? I am unclear of what exactly that means.
Yeah. So that is in essentially the fiscal sponsorship is where a 501c3, I think it's always, well, anyway, it's where a nonprofit organization lends their nonprofit status to another organization for the purposes of this kind of granting. So usually that means that that organization is the one that would be receiving the funds and distributing the funds. They're ultimately the ones that would have kind of oversight over those funds getting distributed. Usually, the fiscally sponsored organization is kind of doing most of the on the ground work, and the fiscal sponsor is the one that is kind of overseeing, administering uh, those funds getting passed on to the other organization. So, um, yeah,
Thank you.
that's what it is in a nutshell. Yep, no problem. Great question. Um, in this next section, we'll ask about your alignment with America's 250th initiatives. And so, again, if you're partnering with, or if you are a local history organization, which initiatives is the specific event that you are asking for funding for? Which initiatives does it align with? And then, if that specific event it isn't the one that's aligning with those specific initiatives, are you participating in any other America 250 initiatives outside of this specific event that you're requesting funds for? And that will be a simple, actually, I'll give you a quick example. It will just be a simple yes or no. We're not asking you to give a long description of any of that. You'll have an opportunity to do that a little bit later in the application. So again, we're really trying to make this application hopefully as simple as possible, so that you're not answering 15 narrative questions, and that you can get through this pretty quickly. Um, uh, in the detailed proposal, this is where you're really going to describe your event, right? So this is where you want to really talk about your event, where it's happening, when it's happening, who your audience is, if who you're partnering with, really kind of lay out a description of what the event is that you're proposing, and kind of give a sense of the scope and scale of the event. And then in the next question, you're going to describe the impacts of the proposed event. That's where you're really thinking, that's where you really want to describe a little bit more about who's being served, how this might be expanding your audience or the audience for America 250 programming more broadly, how this might be highlighting a variety of perspectives of Washington's past, how this might fit into long-term impact in your community or for your organization. So that's really kind of talking about the impact and significance of the event. And then you'll include your program budget. We include about 6 lines here, so we do not need you listing out every single expense line, but really just to be able to kind of broadly categorize your event, your anticipated event expenses, and the grant request, how much of the grant funding is going to go towards that. We do ask for an anticipated spend or purchase date. This really can be anticipated. It does not have to be, we're not asking you to go back through your calendar and peg the exact date. The important thing to note here is we cannot reimburse for expenses prior to February 24th, 2026. And we also want to see if these expenses are something that you're expecting to incur much later than our grant contracting period, right? That kind of late October date. So again, that's really why we're asking that question, and we would just want to make sure it falls kind of generally within the range that we would be able to reimburse for. And then in here, we're going to ask for event and program funding, just to again confirm that that you have a plan for how you're either going to raise or pay for those other event expenses that are not being covered by the grant.
And I'll just chime in, Dylan, to pro tip, don't put amount confirmed in the 250 grant field. We're unable to restrict it because it's just a table that it doesn't have that much customization. But don't fill in that box because it's not confirmed. You're in the process of applying. So for other funds that you're applying for or that you're expecting to come in but haven't come in yet, put those dollars in the anticipated column, and then the confirmed would be like cash on hand, grants you've already received, donations you've already received, things like that. And it doesn't count against you to have anticipated. We're just trying to get a sense of how far along in the process you are, planning process. So.
We do have the ADA attestation. These funds are coming through from federal funding. So again, that is a requirement for funds that are being distributed from federal funds. And then down at the bottom, you will, here's where you'll upload your documents. The Our required document is we do ask that you upload your IRS determination letter. It's a little slightly different for fiscally sponsored organizations. I'll talk about that here in a second. And then other supporting documents. And this is, up to 3. We're not asking you to submit all of your program planning documents, but really anything that will go to support your program description or impacts that you've stated above. So I will say, if you are partnering with organizations, if you can include a letter of support, and that can literally be an email from one of your partners saying, hey, we're excited about partnering on this event, that's great, right? We just want to see that you've confirmed those partners, that you're for those key partners for your event. But again, you can include things like if you have a event flyer, a program planning document that really outlines or supports some of the narrative that you were describing above. All of those things just help our reviewers kind of get a sense of again where you are in the process and how your program is aligning with the overall grant priorities. And then that's it. Once you fill in that information, you'll get a button that you can hit submit and send in your application. If you're working on this in stages, if you hit save and close, you'll get back to this dashboard view. If you scroll down on the left-hand column over here to my mouse stopped working. Oh well. If you go over here to the applications, you'll see this draft here. That's where you'll be able to go back in and find that draft application and go back into edit. All right. With that, I'm going to please.
I'll quickly point out that you're up in the upper right-hand corner. There's that little print icon. So right next to that will be an edit button. I don't know why it's not showing up here. We're having some settings issues, I guess. But if you've saved and closed and you still see that yellow banner across the top, when you're ready to submit, use the submit button in the bottom right corner. That means you haven't sent it in yet. So the edit button means you can go in and continue editing, and then the submit button in the bottom right is to actually go ahead and submit. You'll receive an email confirmation when that happens.
So we'll get that application button issue worked out here in a moment. But again, I'm hoping that this should be a quick and easy process to submit your application. And if you do have questions at any point as you're going through, you accidentally hit submit and something, you didn't mean to, and you need us to just please email us. We're happy to work with you to get those issues straightened out. And so again, if you're a fiscally sponsored organization, I just want to note, if you are, again, please reach out to us so we can talk through a little bit more of the process and what you'll need. But one thing to note is that if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, your fiscal sponsor will also need to create a profile in our Heritage portal. and then you have to contact me so I can add them and join their organization to your application so you can move forward with your application. So if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, work with your fiscal sponsor to get registered in our system sooner rather than later, and that way we can match them up in the system. You'll also need to upload a couple of things from your fiscal sponsor, including their mission statement, their UEI number, IRS determination letter, and then some of those policies and agreements that's showing that they are that they have some policies around the fiscal sponsorship and that they are that they have agreed to be your fiscal sponsor. Again, just a couple of extra steps there for those situations. All right. Scoring, as I mentioned previously, right? We want all of these events to be able to put their best foot forward. So even if you know maybe you're not in a small rural community, there's plenty of opportunities to really highlight the strengths of your application and your event. And that can be through your community impact. So, and again, all of these things that are listed on the right are just pieces of things that could help boost your score. It doesn't mean you have to hit every box, right? So does your event include multiple perspectives or include multiple community partners? Does it have that long-term impact or reach underserved communities in your area? Is it for program alignment? How does it align with these? Does your event align with these Washington State initiatives, or how are you participating in other Washington State America 250 initiatives? How are you incorporating history or working with the history organization with your event? This project planning piece is really just looking at kind of the scope of the program and the budget that you've submitted, and just making sure those things are aligned, that what your expenses are matches what your incoming funding is, that you have enough funding to cover the expenses, and that the event is realistic and achievable. And again, that it's if you're in that situation, that there is we're providing access for small and rural communities. And then, so after you submit your application at the end of May, we'll go through initial staff review and then a panel review of those grant applications. We'll look to get award notifications out by in June. We know that a lot of people are trying to plan for their July 4th event, so we're really trying to get these grants and contracting out the door. Again, we will ask for all of those summer events in particular, that everything is wrapped up by the October 31st date. And then we'll ask for all final reporting by November 30th. So again, the reimbursement process should be quick and easy. It'll just be, again, your final report, those receipts for those expenses that you're requesting grant funding for. And that can be either by that November 30th date, or when you have your final report and your receipts ready at the end of after your event. And just one last call, if you're not already a partner, just go to america250wa.org, or you can follow this QR link, go to our partners page, you can sign up. Again, it should be pretty quick and easy to get started on that process, and then you can start your application. This is me. Feel free to email me. That phone number, that's you can call, text me there. And you can always find information about the grant at that washingtonhistory.org/250grants. All right, let me stop there and see what other questions have we not gotten to, or other questions have come up about the application or anything else we talked about today.
Could you go back to that last slide so I can finish writing your phone number
yes,
and
you're right. Okay.
Email?
And
or put it in the chat.
I can do both of those things. You're right. I'll do both of those things. Thank you. This is also on the grant webpage as well. You can get my email and phone number there. But let's put it in all the places so you know how to reach out if you need to.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, Katrinka.
I'm sorry, a couple more quick questions. One is because our exhibit will be opening on June 14th before this is awarded, those expenses would qualify as long as they're not before the February date,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
as
So
long as they weren't
um,
incurred before the February date.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
So as long as they weren't incurred before February 24th, they would still be eligible for funding again, as long as it's an eligible expense, expense related expense, and we have you have a receipt for it basically. And we can work with once you get to that award process, we can kind of go a little bit more. We work more individually with each organization on kind of that reimbursement, depending on what are the expenses that you're requesting the reimbursement for. So, but yeah,
okay.
short answer, yes, it would be
And
eligible as long as it's not before that February 24th date.
and you had mentioned that staff time is eligible, so would you just be looking for timesheets for that, or how would we qualify staff time
Yeah.
with
Jay,
receipts and stuff?
I might turn this over to you, Jay. We've worked on this with another grant, and Jay can give a little more information about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we would ask is that you sort of do a quick track of whatever hours you're paying for. The time, it can be in whatever format works for you. Just worked this many hours on this day on the event, and then we want to see the pay stub. So the hour tracking and the pay stub, and we'll pay for your staff time.
Great. Got it. Thank you very much.
Yep. Of course. All right. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing just to make sure I can see everyone, see if I'm missing any other questions.
There were a bunch of questions about the final report that
Okay.
popped up. We will be we are moving very quickly on this, and so we haven't created the form itself yet, but in the guidelines, it describes essentially the type of information we're going to be asking. I think it's on the last page, but it's basically kind of like how the event go, rough participation numbers, did you meet your goals, that type of stuff. It's not a matter of like, oh, you didn't meet your attendance number, you're not getting a grant. Like that's not the issue. We just want to kind of get a sense of how it went. And then you'll need to attach your financial information to the grant to get your dollars reimbursed. So as I said, we haven't created that form in the portal yet, so you won't be able to, we don't have a draft of it yet, but after you're awarded a grant, you'll be able to see that form.
Yeah. And if
And
you look in the guidelines and oh, go ahead. Mhm.
I was just gonna say, I assume the final report is the same as the invoice. It's like, yeah,
We're
Yeah, yeah,
putting it all in one form. So basically, there's going to be
got it.
some narrative questions and then some attachments. It's like kind of trying to simplify things. Let us know how it went, attach your documentation, and that'll be your final report.
yeah. And you'll see in the grant guidelines, again, similar to the application, we're not asking for, a three-page paper about your event. It'll be a really short, just a quick little description, some event photos, right? To just help us give a sense of, the event went, how'd it go, that kind of thing. Awesome.
And Dylan, there's another question about the dates. So Dylan kind of covered this right at the
Yeah.
beginning. We've put the October 31st deadline as a sort of um, benchmark for us because we are starting another grant program in August for specifically for history organizations. So we are trying to wrap up as many of these events grants as we can by the end of October. If you have an event occurring in November or December, reach out and talk to us about it. Let us know and we can work with you to make an exception on that. But generally speaking, we want to try to have all of the events, grants, documentation, and reporting wrapped up by October.
Really great questions. And again, we are just excited to see how many people and how many partners are doing so much this year. We are really excited to be able to have this grant program to help support all of these efforts that you all are trying to launch. Oh, you know what I didn't mention at the beginning of this is the scale of these. So these are $1,000 grants. We're hoping to be able to distribute 50 grants all throughout the state. So again, this is maybe be slightly competitive, but again, we're going to be distributing hopefully a large number of grants all throughout the state, and so we really do want to support efforts that are happening all over. So again, we really do want you, if you've got an America 250 related event, we do want you to apply. And again, if you have questions, if you want to talk a little bit more about your application and how it fits in with program priorities to be able to put your best foot forward, please reach out. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for all the time today. If you have additional questions, you have my contact information. Please reach out. And I look forward to seeing all of your applications come through the portal soon. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.